Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. We know that trust helps bind the relationships we have with our customers, our suppliers, and our staff, and it's a virtue that should be at the centre of how you sell. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Sales expert Sue Barrett says building trust is something you need to be constantly aware of. It needs to be reflected in every step of your sales process, in your business agreements, in your personal promises, and in the way you conduct yourself, all the time. Sue is CEO of Barrett Consulting Group, and she's an ethical and sustainable business growth strategist. She says virtues like trust, cooperation, and gratitude are more important than ever. Chris Ashmore asks Sue whether that's because of COVID, and has the pandemic changed our approach to selling?
Oh, absolutely. COVID's changed a lot of things. I heard a great saying, it's attributed to Vladimir Lenin, so over 100 years ago, that he said this: there are decades where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen. And we have seen fundamental changes because of COVID. And in one of those areas, selling has fundamentally changed, not in how to sell well and be a good salesperson, but in how we engage with our customers and our buyers. So we've seen that digital and remote selling has really started to ramp up. A lot of people have been caught short, but knowing how to actually set up and stay in touch with clients, how to keep talking to them, how to keep working with them, it's very important that people have a mix of where they can work remotely, digitally, as well as in person, lockdowns notwithstanding.
Are there any things that businesses might be doing wrong when it comes to sales?
Well, what COVID has exposed when we look at this is, firstly, early on, like last year, we started to report that a lot of businesses' CRMs, their client database, was really poorly managed, not up to date, had a lot of rubbish data in it. And so when they wanted to communicate immediately with their client base, many were unable to do so because they hadn't kept that repository, if you like, of data, of client data, up to date and current. So that put a lot of people on the back foot as well. The other thing too is that they're not set up their businesses digitally so that their sales teams could immediately go into remote selling mode, that they could have, virtual meetings and those sorts of things. So a lot of people hadn't invested in technology, so they were caught short there as well. And the other thing too is that if you were just out there selling into certain markets, thought everything was sweet, and then COVID came along and your whole supply chain dried up, a lot of businesses were caught short in terms of where else could I be selling. So I've always said to people, just having a plan A isn't good enough. You've got to have a plan B and C and know where other markets are coming from. So they were let down in terms of strategy, go-to-market strategies, knowing about target markets and how they could pivot or shift what they were doing into other markets to keep revenue and opportunities and customers flowing. So they're just a couple of things that we noticed and have noticed still that a lot of businesses were caught short on. So poor CRM hygiene, poor strategy or no strategy, just steady as she goes and then caught short. And of course, not setting people up digitally so that they're in a position to be able to stay in touch with their customers and keep working with them and keep engaging with them in a manner that actually was helpful. Because that's the thing, a lot of customers are actually finding that this digital way of engaging with people is actually really good. It saves a lot of time. Not that we're going to go completely digital, but we need a combination of both. And that's what's happening is a lot of buyers, a lot of customers are finding having these quick meetings or saving costs in terms of having to travel to different places that, actually having digital meetings is pretty handy and helpful and works.
Any suggestions on what businesses can do right now to improve their sales?
Well, COVID notwithstanding, the fundamentals are true, that you need to be able to find an easily understood and relevant, compelling business reason to do work with your clients, your value proposition. That hasn't changed. So what is it? What distinguishes you from your competitors? You also have to incorporate sales into the value chain across the whole business, link everyone's roles to how we sell and service around here. We also need to shift away from making sales about achieving only financial goals and instead look towards selling in solutions in order to help our customers solve real-world problems and achieve their goals. So selling is about collaboration and working with others, not just trying to flog something onto someone else. We also need to reward salespeople by removing non-sales related activities from their activity mandate. If you want to turn them into virtual admin jockeys, well, that's your choice, but you want them client-facing, be it in person, as in physically and or remote. We also need to introduce effective governance that automates non-critical revenue-generating activities in sales. We want to employ and develop salespeople with the right character and attitudes, so they're not just technical salespeople, but they're very good at the business and human side of selling as well. So they're business savvy and human-centred. So again, back to that collaboration. And we want to be able to give sales managers the freedom to be leaders and coaches rather than super salespeople. And that's a real challenge there too. So I think what people can do is review their sales strategy and go-to-market plans, analyse their market segments, looking for viable target markets or untapped areas, drilling down into sub-segments and even micro-segments. Audit their sales processes and protocols to make sure that they're supporting effective selling. Review your key account management strategies and overall sales practices. Review your selection process for salespeople and clients. What does a good client look like? What does a good salesperson look like for your business now? Assess the knowledge, skills and mindset of your team to make sure that they're fit for purpose, and then continue to train and coach managers and salespeople regularly in little chunks over time so they can develop mastery in their new world of selling. And so these are just some of the things that I would recommend, and to steer away from what we call point solutions, which is where people think there's one silver bullet that will solve everything, and that of course doesn't work when you're working in a systems-oriented world that we do in sales.
Now, Sue, you're known as an advocate for ethical behaviour and virtues when it comes to business. What virtues do you find relevant when interacting with others?
Well, every relationship is built on trust. Everyone talks about that, but whether they model or enact it. So the test is, are you trustworthy? So I look at the virtue of trustworthiness. And so trustworthiness is being worthy of the trust others place in us. When we give our word, we stand by it. Through our actions, we keep our promises and commitments. There's a constancy in what we do in these relationships. The foundations of trustworthiness are basically our business agreements and our personal promises. And Harvard actually defined trustworthiness as having three core components. One is authenticity. Am I who I say I am? The second is empathy. So do I actually understand the other that I am working with? I don't have to agree with them, but do I understand and respect where they're coming from? And the third element is logic. Is what I'm saying actually logical? Does it make sense? Is it going to be verifiable? So to me, one of the key virtues of anything, any relationship, and particularly in business and sales, is trustworthiness. Then we can look at cooperation. Cooperation is how we actually work together for the good of all. So again, back to this collaboration, cooperation, understanding that each of us, has things we need to achieve, how we can actually work together in a way to make that actually manifest for both of us in a way that's also good for those who are affected by our decisions. So I think looking to ways to be helpful, how we can actually accomplish great things together, that's what I would look at in terms of cooperation. Curiosity, kindness, they're the sorts of things that actually also go for healthy relationships. And also too, I think, the virtue of gratitude. As Cicero said, that gratitude is the parent of all other virtues. And what gratitude is a constant attitude of thankfulness and appreciation for life as it unfolds. So as a salesperson, if I approach my client relationships from a place of gratitude, if as a customer you approach good suppliers from a place of gratitude, if we actually see that together we're actually helping each other achieve things, we can actually really appreciate and be grateful for the fact that we actually get to do this with each other. They're just some of the virtues that I think people, if they paid attention to them, might find that their relationships flourish better, that they have a better foundation for ongoing work, ongoing business, ongoing relationships with each other. It's when you view others in a predatory manner, that's when you end up shortchanging yourself and others, and it becomes very short term. The virtues I promote are about long-term, sustainable, healthy, viable relationships, which actually, at the heart of anything, makes for what is a good business, a good society, and so on.
That was Barrett Consulting Group CEO, Sue Barrett. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.